In today's business update, we'll be talking about Tesla's bill. If you own a Tesla Model car or Model 3 or Model Y, you'll be charged for any repairs for as much as $16,000, or for a few thousand more, you could buy a brand new car. How that happened, we'll talk about that later. Next is we'll be talking about next Netflix plan, the streaming giant, in terms of not just conquering the streaming services but also conquering the video game industry. Next, we'll be talking about our country's nation's bid to win for its first ever gold. And the benefit of winning gold is you can earn as much as 10 million pesos or even 30 million. So, will this entice our athletes to perform better? We'll talk about that as well. And lastly, we'll be talking about the update on the Skyway 3 Expressway. It's now open now for business. So is this good for motorists or bad for our motorists? So to start off, so as mentioned earlier, the Tesla, the electric vehicle giant, makers of electric vehicles, I was surprised to find out regarding this scenario wherein a Tesla owner went to the dealership because there was a problem with his vehicles, and when he got the quote, he was shocked and surprised. Even I, he was quoted to be paying in sum of $16,000, similar to a few thousand more. You could be buying a brand new car already, and according to the article here at the drive.com. So the question is, why is it getting your car fixed is costing so much? Is it a ploy? Is it the fault of the car manufacturer, or the not properly taking care of your cars by the owner, and so forth? Anyway, so let's take a closer look here. Now, obviously, for new car owner, typically if there's something wrong with your car, you get it fixed with your dealership, and they're supposed to take care of you for for the first 5 years and or so. uh, but there's also independent dealerships that we call that, so that they can help us service the car, whether brand new or even if it's an older make of sorts. And in this case, the owner of a Tesla Model 3, there was a debris that hit the undercarriage of his car, damaging the battery pack. Now, obviously, if you own a Model 3 or any Tesla car, the battery pack is a key component of your vehicle. And when he asked for an estimate, the replacement of the entire pack, which totaled to $16,000, which is not cheap, pretty expensive, right? But here's the best part. He reached out to a different company, an alternative solution, so to speak, and the team was Electrified Garage, and they just charged him for $700, which is pretty significantly lower than the 16,000 fee that the dealership was asking. And one would be surprised as to how is this possible. And if we take a closer look as to the situation here, it mentions that the problem here underneath the car, as mentioned, is the coolant line that runs sideways along the tunnel where the front drive unit normally sits and attaches to a nipple. So it's a very small nipple that attaches to both sides, that's located on the battery pack. And obviously, if that was damaged, resulting in coolant leaking from the battery pack, which is bad and could be dangerous and hazardous. So obviously, if you went to the Tesla service center, and when they investigated or inspected it, they suggest that they have to replace the entire pack, which cost a pretty hefty sum. And question is, was there any faster or easier solution which will not cost $16,000? But obviously, $700 is a pretty significant change. And question here is, why is it that a third-party company was able to fix the problem at minimal cost? Now, one would think that is it a long-term solution? Will it break down again, and so forth? And what's interesting here, despite finding a better solution, how come Tesla was not able to do the same thing and fix the car right away? Obviously, if it's just brand new, you expect it to last for several years before you encounter major problems in your vehicle. And what's interesting, Tesla, the company, was even planning to keep the Model 3 damaged battery pack. So meaning you'll be forced to replace it by a new one. And obviously, if you have any problem, who are you going to contact in terms of public relations, which Tesla dissolved it already. So how can people complain or ask for any feedback and so forth? And what's interesting, Tesla was even willing to return the pack. Apparently still question why one would want it either way. Obviously, the battery pack is still valuable in essence since it's just a battery, so you can use it for other application, and it's still worth a few $1,000s if you sell it in the second-hand market online. And obviously, the right to repair always comes to question here. And obviously, as a one of the big advocates as well, I think it makes sense that you should be able to get it fixed at a very reasonable price. And obviously, you would like to get it fixed in your dealership because they're the makers, they should know how to get it fixed. But obviously, it's for them to you know it is it gives them total control in terms of, if you have no other choice, no one can fix your vehicle, then you'll be forced to pay up a hefty amount. But if there are other mechanics who can fix it at a very lower price, then they'll be forced to lower their pricing and find out what was the real problem as to why a small, you know, connecting device was easily damaged in the first place. And obviously, since an immediate fix was done, what would what will Tesla do in the future? Would they try to make it even harder, similar to how Apple does with their products, making it harder for other third-party companies to fix your devices, which we have a right to do, and those companies don't have the right to be able to stop us from getting it fixed unless they can fix them themselves at a very reasonable price. And obviously, this hotly contested issue nowadays with regards to, it's not just fixing broken parts in your vehicles, and they're also implementing this ludicrous component in terms of disabling access to software aspects, uh, stating that if it's unsupported repairs to protect its own vehicles, that it would limit its access, which is another speak or term in terms of another uh, another form of control. If irresponsible users go to any technicians who could just try to fix your vehicle, and if it goes array, then it's their fault. It doesn't give credence to Tesla to just simply take away the options for people to decide whether what to do with their vehicle once they buy, because technically once it's off the dealership, they own it, right? We own, or in this case, we own it. So having this right to repair and right for consumer protection is totally dissipating with many of the tech companies, not just Tesla. You have Apple, as mentioned, locking consumers to their ecosystem and making it even more harder for third-party repair to fix any problems that we have. Supposed to be a device that is sold in the market, supposed to last for years. Nowadays, it's not even advertised anymore, and they keep on churning out more products every year, assuming you're expected to replace it every year. That does not make sense. You can imagine, home appliances, you have to replace it every year. That does not happen. And tech companies are expecting us to replace it at what cost, right? If it made sense, can imagine you have to replace your TV every year, your refrigerator every year, your air conditioner, or any appliances. It only applies in smartphones. Think about in cars or vehicles. You see them changing cars every year and so forth, even if you have the money, because where do you put them, right? Anyway, Tesla has been reported to disable the fast charging using third-party chargers under the same reason. So again, it's giving them excuses to why they're limiting the options. While on the other hand, they'll charge you for a subscription fee for you to use certain features in their vehicles, which is kind of bogus in a sense that once you buy an item, aren't you supposed to, if you advertise it that this is the features that you're selling us, we should get all of the features, not as an add-on. So it's turning more like into a gaming scenario wherein, there's a paywall before you can even upgrade your characters, or in a gaming scenario wherein if you want to maximize or level up your character, you have to pay a certain amount to improve your performance and so forth. It's becoming more likely that that's what Tesla is planning to do. But the big question here is, with regards to the situation here with the Tesla owner, is how come the coolant flange was designed like this, where obviously if it's placed underneath the carriage of a vehicle, it will always be exposed to debris, while running along the road. Question is, why is it that it's made so vulnerable so that it can penetrate the nipple, as mentioned earlier, that it would cost you to replace the entire pack rather than just fix the nipple itself. It puts the more onus on Tesla the company. Why is the integral of the pack structure so weak, right? And then blaming it on the user themselves, because you're supposed to produce a vehicle that is reliable and supposed to be affordable. And it's not as if you could just replace your smartphone easily. And this is going to be a ongoing debate whether people agree or not, but it's our right to have our interests protected. That's why we need the government to step in, and I think Mr. Biden has stepped in. And I would say it's a law. I think we're in it's for right to repair, but we have to wait and see how much power does that help us as a consumer, worldwide here. Anyway, next we have here is, next Netflix plan for world dominance. Obviously, they're dominating in the streaming services, and they're planning to expand similar to other companies. But in this case, I was surprised to find out, according to the Verge.com, that they're planning to also delve into video games, which is, kind of interesting. It makes sense for them as a streaming services. They're already online, so transitioning to games would make sense. But obviously, is it a great package for Netflix, similar to how I think what Steam is doing right now? So obviously, they're known for Valve is known for making Steam, so they're one of the more popular platforms in terms of PC games. And Netflix is going to use their leverage in terms of, are all of the viewers in their platform also gamers, or trying to attract more people to switch to their platform and so forth. So what's interesting here is they're looking for executives to lead their gaming division. So they've snagged a former EA Oculus executive to lead its video game efforts. Now, they've hired Mr. Mike Verdu. Hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Is now the vice president of game development. So obviously, this is a major shift, not just shift, but an addition to their core business, which is the streaming services. And obviously, providing games on top of just watching videos, watching movies, or even TV series is, their core business. And what's interesting here is they might be offering it on sorry, they might be offering here beside their streaming content without extra charge for the subscribers, which is, you know that could be a good deal. Eventually they could charge more if they have a pretty substantial gamer base here. Now, in terms of Mr. Verdu, who is a former executive who has experience with mobile gaming with companies like Zynga, who also ran EA Mobile for a year, and most recently been working with Facebook acquiring a series of Oculus game developers like Big Box and VR. So he has some experience with regards to games here. Now, according to the CEO, Greg Peters, he mentions that we're in the business of creating this amazing deep universes and compelling characters, and people coming to love those universes, and they want to immerse themselves more deeply and get to know the characters better, and their backstories and all of those stuff. And so really we're trying to figure out what all of these different ways that we can increase those points of connection so we can deepen the fandom. Now obviously they're capitalizing on the growth of games, especially with what happened last year. So going into games is important, but obviously it's easier said than done. You've seen Google trying to go into gaming, but to little to no success because you know game the gaming industry, the fan base is totally different from people who just casually watch films or videos. It's a totally different animal altogether. Now if they're able to make progress with it, then good for them. But in terms of being successful, you need to hire more capable people, and you need to have patience in terms of obviously growing another segment of your business takes a lot of capital resources, and if you're lucky, if you get the right people and the right games, and especially exclusive games, right, similar to how Nintendo is popular with the Mario franchise. Then you have Sony with who's familiar with the Uncharted series, the what's again the God of War series. Then you also have the Horizon Zero Dawn. Then you have Halo for the Microsoft Xbox. So if they can create good exclusive games for their platform, so people would be enticed to use their platform, and you grow from there. Hopefully, they can make a better relationship with their gamers, not follow the pitfalls of what Sony is doing with regards to their relationship with indie developers, and then Sony creating hardware that is flawed, and then making a newer version, but which is geared towards to new gamers, not for the loyal gamers who have been buying their games and consoles for several years and so forth. So we'll see how that pans out. Anyway, next we have uh, in terms of our country's bid to win its first ever elusive gold medal. Now obviously getting to the Olympics is a difficult path already, and winning the gold is even more harder. Obviously, the according to the article here, Rappler.com, Mr. Ramon Ang, who is I would say owner, CEO of San Miguel Corporation, is committing to uh, pay a reward of 10 million pesos for any athlete who's going to win the Tokyo Olympics later this year, and will get at least 30 million in cash incentive, considering other patrons, namely Mr. MVP and also the Philippine Olympic Committee. Anyway, so obviously, if you think about it, this is a good reward for people, athletes who's been working hard to get to this point, and obviously, not many athletes can get to this point, reaching the Olympics, and even with this current climate, whether there should have been an Olympics or should have been postponed, because in many sports, I think there have been reports those who were already in Tokyo tested positive, and obviously it would uh, ruin their chances of bidding for gaining a medal in the competition. And actually, in the NBA, I think there have been several players who have dropped out already. I think the USA team, we have Bradley Beal has dropped out. Now for Love is for another reason. And I think who's the third one? I can't remember. So how do they replace those players? But again, it goes back to the main notion. Should the Olympics continue still? The fact that it was mentioned earlier that it was only for Japan residents who are able to watch. So there will be no spectators from outside of the region or the country. And then they announced that there will be no spectators at all. So it would be weird to watch, competing, especially for the track and field where the emotions run high. So it would be weird for those competing, especially for large arenas. You expect tens of thousands of people, participating, cheering for their favorite athlete and so forth. Anyway, going back here to the article, as mentioned. So, as mentioned, the tycoon Mr. Ramon Ang has committed. Not only him, we have also Mr. MVP, Mr. Manny Pangilinan, committing 10 million, as much as 30 million for that elusive gold medal. And what's funny here is the POC president, Mr. Tolentino, confirmed this and is very thankful of those people and who's donating. My question here is, why aren't we using those money to create more Olympians rather than just rewarding them at the end of the day? Because obviously being an athlete is not easy. We need financial support, backing from the government, and you know, as you can see later on, you'll notice that the only people who will be competing in our who will be holding our banner here are based on individual sports, not team sports. Even though basketball is one of the more popular sports in the country, but you know, we're not getting a gold with that sport. We have a more likely chance if it's an individual sport. Actually, I think way back in his heyday, Mr. Batares, if billiards was a sport for the Olympics, we would have won our gold there since he was the most dominant player at that time. Anyway, as mentioned, Mr. Pani Pangilinan is also joining in by giving out cash incentives for top players who are able to win, win medals here. Uh, my question here is how come? How come? Why can't we use those money to support our athletes, to better train them, better prepare them, so that we get better chances? Because if we get more athletes in the competition, let's say you get 100, maybe one out of 100 gets a medal, and we can consistently do it and find out what's the key there, which sports are we good at, which sports for male, which sports for female, what individual sports should we focus in, and so forth, so that it gives us a better chance. Because obviously dangling this reward at the end of the day means nothing if we don't even get to the podium, right? And the hard work of all our athletes will be put to waste. And what happens to them after they retire, right? It's not as if our government is going to take care of our athletes by the time they retire. Is there any program after that where there'll be endorsement deals and so forth? I'm just saying here that there should be a concrete plan of how to sustain this, not just look at like in the case of Miss Hidalyn Diaz, silver medalist from 2016, right? So how can we help her reach the same level or even get a better one, and who's going to succeed her by the time she retires? And then you also have a gymnast of Carlos Yulo. We will be betting on him, hopefully medaling or not. But either way, it's a big achievement being an Olympian already. Then you have Paul Volter, EJ Obiena. So, and we also have Open US Women's Open titleist Yuka Sasso as our best bets for the Olympics. And as you can see, they're all based on individual sports, nothing about team sports here. And our government needs to work harder in terms of supporting our athletes here, better facility, better, so that the athletes can only focus on the training, getting better exposure, competing with different athletes around the world, so that they can experience the high competition, so that by the time they reach the Olympics, they're more than well prepared and capable of competing here. Next, we have here, as mentioned, if you've been traversing from north to south, you've been using the Skyway 3 as a means to travel. Well, here's an update. So they're now implementing toll collections, so they're now open for business, an actual business. So meaning they'll be charging commuters who are traveling the Skyway 3. Now, according to the PNA article here, pna.gov.ph, the Skyway 3 traffic eases amid adjustment to toll collections next. Again, it's not as if it's our first rodeo of creating expressways, right? And how is it that you open the facility and we always deal with congestions, you know, uh, causing traffics, delays, and so forth. Now, as mentioned here, where was it? Let's see. There you go. It was mentioned that they expect more seamless movement along the new Skyway 3 with new measures to avoid congestions. Well, that didn't pan out too well, for the first day in particular. Obviously, there were miscommunication that could have been avoided in the first place. And according to SMC President Mr. Ramon Ang, he mentioned it's unfortunate that many motorists were caught in traffic last Monday and apologies for the inconvenience. But they have dry run for several months and could have polished that. We had that issue in the North Expressway when the government suddenly required people to get certain requirements before you could even travel outside of the metro and so forth. Not planning things first before implementing it will always cause chaos in the road here. And while this was not totally unexpected, for our part, we have to do better. Yeah, because you're charging a fee here, which is another total issue I have with, because why do you keep on building more highways, which not a vast majority of our citizens have cars? We need more public transportation so that it can decongest the actual traffic. Because if everyone was using public transport, then it would reduce the traffic congestion. How come other countries, other nations are able to do it successfully? If we're going to build a skyway like this, why can't we build a railway system similar to Japan, Taiwan, and even in Hong Kong? And and they even make revenue out of it, so it can be lucrative. Anyway, it goes on to say, hopefully the measures in place, traffic conditions will continue to improve and normalize. Yeah. Anyway, so the traffic throughput at toll plazas slowed down Monday primarily to due vehicles with insufficient load, which is again another issue of mine. You have to make sure that people, if you're going to automate this, you have to use cards or RFID, whatever the technology is, make it seamless for the everyday consumer. Similar, I think, when I went to Japan, they give us a Sui card. You can use it for any services here, and if you want to reload it, you can go to any kiosk, or in this case, you can go to 7-Eleven and reload it, make it easier so that 7-Elevens is aplenty here in the city. So rather than go to a particular site, make it easier for consumers so that they won't encounter any more problems. So there's no excuse for the drivers not to get the necessary load for their card or for their RFID sticker and so forth. And obviously this will cause delays every time that people are not prepared and they're willing to pay cash and there's no cash, so they have to block the road, or in this case the toll. So it goes on and on and it multiplies, and it's always the same, right? And in terms of the interconnectivity of our skyways, do they have a unified card? If they do, then that would be tremendous. And again, making it easier for access to load them should be made a priority here. And obviously until that issue is settled, it would always have bottlenecks in toll gates where people, let's say they don't have sufficient load. What happens then, right? So make sure, let's say maybe the load is at least 500, $1,000 or even more, so that those people who are always traversing ensure that they have extra cash, or they could update it easily and find out if they have enough load for the next trip, and if not, then they could update it and get more load. And as mentioned here, what's interesting again, the Skyway was already open late last December, right? Providing public free unlimited use for nearly 7 months. So meaning you should have 7 months preparing for the congestion here, so that to avoid any inconvenience for the motorists, since you're making a hefty amount here, regardless if they're saying that the company is foregoing revenues reaching to 3 billion. So you lost 3 billion, but eventually you will recoup those investments eventually, because you're charging motorists either way. So it's not an excuse for you to tell us that you're doing this in good faith. If you're going to do this in good faith, then don't charge us either way. And it's the same for other, that's why, rather than making more roads for vehicles, why not create more public transport access for everyone? Trains connecting the north, the south, the east, and the west regions of our metro would be tremendous. And obviously, the government is trying to make headway of that, but along only the major roads. But you can just imagine, if you're from, let's say, in Navotas area or in Malabon area, then you can just take the subway or the train to get from the northern part, and let's say get to Alabang, or all the way to Laguna or different parts of the Luzon area would be tremendous here. And maybe you could create a bullet train of sorts, so that you can connect all the way from the northern region all the way to the Visayas and Mindanao region. Won't that be something? And I think it would create more tourism, more projects, more business, and more employment. And anyway, that's a that's a big ask anyway here. And also here it mentions that in the NLEX region, if you're traversing from the north going to the south, they're stating, according to Mr. Ang, obviously gives you an alternative here if you're a motorist here. But obviously for the majority, as I mentioned, who does not own a private vehicle, they have to rely on public transport. And limitation of public transport is one of our main hurdles before we can even move forward as a nation, right? Well, hopefully our government can prioritize more projects that benefits our regular citizens, not just only a select few. But in terms of business, obviously connecting the north and the south with this expressway would be tremendous, especially for container trucks that are trying to bypass the main thoroughbreds that they have to go through, so that if you're traveling from north to south, it would expedite the travel time. And obviously the cost will be higher, but the time is critical here, especially if you're delivering, let's say, fresh produce that are perishable. Then time is always of the essence here. Well, anyway, that enough of that ranting here. So hopefully uh, hopefully, if you have any questions regarding today's topic, you can I leave the link in the description below if you want to read the full article. Thanks again for watching. Come back again on Wednesday for more business update. If you enjoy these types of videos, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Also, you may be interested in check out my other videos. If you're interested to long format discussion, I have BizTalk when I talk to different entrepreneurs here. If you're interested, or you can check out my playlist on Guys Tutorial Tips if you're into analytics and statistics here. Anyway, as always, I'll see you again next time, same channel. No, not time, same channel. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.